Howdy doody everybody, I hope you're doing great. In today's video we're talking about Monster Hunter and the community at large. Last week I put out a poll asking everybody what they think of the Monster Hunter community, and this is going to be a kind of like an open letter and us kind of breaking down the results of that poll and a couple of responses and the general things around that the results of that poll. Basically, I'm here with Paradise.
Hey, good to be back. Howdy doody.
And we're going to go through all of this and have a bit of fun. It's a different video today, but hopefully you guys like it and enjoy it. If you do, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. So the reason I kind of kicked off this poll is there was a tweet that went out, and basically Monster Hunter won the best community in gaming, and I wanted to know if the community really thought that is what matched up with that, because right now, if you're on Twitter and you're on certain places, it certainly does not feel like that. It definitely feels like it's a... I don't know, how would you sum it up, Paradise?
I feel like there's been some discontent recently, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see the results of this. I personally, it's so difficult because as like creators specifically that also cover Monster Hunter games, we're in quite deep, right? Like we see a lot of the stuff that goes on, and I feel like not everyone sees that. You know, that they might be at the more surface level, whereas we're like fully in the meta. You know, so this is actually quite an eye-opening poll, to be honest, to see what just general players of Monster Hunter are feeling.
We haven't even gone through the results with people, so let's go through the results of exactly what came out of that poll. So the breakdown was, we had 3 different options: good, okay, and bad. With good, we got 54% of people basically said that the Monster Hunter community is good. So half of the community thinks that the Monster Hunter community is good. So pat on your back. I think that's good results from it. Obviously, this is a sample size. This is not everybody in the community, but a lot of people did retweet it, and we did have a lot of votes that went through. Then we had 40% thinking it's okay, which means that it's good, but it can be improved, I guess. In that sense, there's like room for improvement. It's like middle of the ground. It's not good, it's not bad type thing. And then at the bottom end of that, with only 6% of the results, which kind of surprised me. I thought this was actually going to be a lot larger. 6% bad. So I think, in general, that isn't too bad of a result. I think the Monster Hunter community, in general, if you go by those results, this is generally good, which is what we kind of want, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would have really loved to have seen like this same poll, but posted when World launched as well. I would just love to see, because I feel like there's been 2 sort of not breaking points, but like speed bumps in the discontent of the Monster Hunter community. Like one was at World launch, and there was a lot of like gatekeeping and drama, and then we've got Rise, where the roadmap like didn't pan out and people weren't happy with how it launched and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. I agree. I actually thought that the bad would be a bigger percentage, and I don't think that it is a bad. Like I wouldn't have voted bad myself, but I could have seen why people would have voted that, especially as more casual players, from like an outside perspective, you know.
It definitely is probably more bad for us, as you were saying earlier. Like we're more exposed to it as like content creator. But like one of the main points that people said in the reply, you can go and check the replies if you want to on the poll. One of the main points that people really like took away from it was what happens on social media around the game isn't anything kind of really applicable to what happens in game. Like in the in-game experience, aside from a few people that are really going AFK or maybe trolling, which is kind of few and far between, you don't really get that toxicity
But do you remember the trap or kill like whole debate as well? That was an in-game thing that was affecting people as well. So it can translate in-game as well.
that could definitely translate in game, but I feel like that discussion around that point, were people moaning about it in game, or were they just getting on with it and in social media?
They were just getting on with it. Like, the hunt's over. If it's dead, you just go into the next one. You know?
No one's gonna go back in and just like troll your next hunt because you captured it like last round or whatever. So the in-game experience, people are always helpful. Whenever I've gone in and done like the SOS or gone into another person's hub or whatever, always found that the people are willing to help or willing to kind of really just hunt, and they don't really care like too much what you're doing as long as you're just having fun. Like, I could go off and go pick a berry or something and then come back to the fight and they're just like, everyone's just happy that they got their carve at the end of the day. So yeah. Very fun experience in game, but that doesn't necessarily translate to social media, and we can see that with the current discussion around this armor. Do you know what's happening with this armor?
I do. They added Guild Cross armor to Rise, and people lost their minds over it. Well, that's what the perception is from social media, but the reality is people are just playing the game and having fun in the actual game, like you're saying. So there is a disconnect there. I just want to say briefly on the Guild Cross armor stuff, like, it doesn't affect like you, and if you don't use the armor, it literally doesn't affect you in any way. Like, why would it upset you if someone else is using like an armor set that you don't like? I really, it goes back to that same thing that happened for a brief period in World, where it was like, oh, if you're not using max attack boost, max crit boost, max weakness exploit, then I'm gonna kick you from the lobby. You know, it's like, it's the hunts aren't that difficult. Like, it's a game where you are not PvPing. Just let people have fun in their own way, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So I will say and point out so that people feel like they have a voice, is like, people are saying if this armor is introduced, it's going to make the general audience a lot more rubbish at the game because they don't get to experience that kind of gradual learning how to play the game. They're just basically able to just power through and do that, which was the case with like the World armor. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the case with this armor because it doesn't have the same attributes, but at the end of the day, if that's how someone is enjoying the game and that's what they're having and they're having fun using that, I don't think we have any say in that, like, at a point. And you got to realize as well, when these armors are released, everybody's enjoyed that content and it's been completed. They're trying to catch up with their friends. The whole reason for these armors is so that they can catch up with their friends and enjoy the experience, going through the content with their friends. If they're kind of frustrated because it's taking them longer to get through content that they didn't need to necessarily, didn't want to play, then that's going to be of a bigger detriment to the community because they're not going to want to play the game, and then there's going to be less players coming in, blah, blah, blah. It's going to create this whole tidal wave of, like, just frustration, basically. But I guess Monster Hunter in itself is generally frustrating, so many people might just be like, you got to put up with it. That's part and parcel of it. But I think the armors are a good thing. It just allows people to catch up with their friends. You don't need to use it. It's a choice. Not everybody will use it if they want to do that experience. And even if they use the armor, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be, like, even if they don't use the armor, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good Monster Hunter player anyway. How many people in Rise, in World, in all the Monster Hunter games don't have that armor, still play, and they're still clapped? And that is fine. If you're rubbish at Monster Hunter, who cares? It's a PvE game. It's not that deep. Carry on. Like, I don't understand why people are so worried about how other people are playing and enjoying their game. I think that's the biggest issue in the Monster Hunter community, is worrying about how other people are playing the game. Like,
and 99.9% of the time you're not going to encounter like those particular other players anyway. Like, most people are either playing solo, they're playing with their friend group, or they're playing with their their Discord group that whatever community they're in, they're part of that group, and they probably have some close-knit friends that they regularly hunt with. Like, I don't know many people that are always doing hunts with random people unless they're a solo player that is choosing to do multiplayer hunts. And then you still are like queuing into the whole of the community, so you don't know who you're going to get. You know, it could be a new player or an experienced player, so it's luck of the draw. But I generally find that the people that are upset that the game is getting easier or these people aren't going to be skilled enough, they're not going to be playing with those players anyway. So does it actually matter? You know?
Yeah, definitely. But like people were saying, it's a small percentage of the overall community, and I think once you do play and you do engage, if you go to any of the like the Twitch streams, or you find a community on YouTube, or you just find a group of friends that you can really get around with, you're gonna find some really good people. Like I've met some friends from there that I'm probably going to have for the rest of my life, and I know you guys probably have stories in the chat about that and stuff as well, so do let us know. But in general, the community is definitely welcoming, and make sure that you kind of know what's going on. Like there's a lot of like information sharing there, which is pretty cool, right?
Definitely. I think let's talk about the poll a bit more as well as like the general gist of what people were saying in response to it, because again, it's a majority saying it's good, and then it's a slightly smaller amount saying it's okay, and then a very small amount saying it's bad. So what are people saying, like, as to why they voted the way they voted?
So a lot of people, for the okay at least, were saying that while they used to enjoy the Monster Hunter community, after World and after Iceborne and Rise, it's got a lot more toxic. And obviously the whole cookie cutter response to that is that, oh, the player base has grown, so more players means more toxicity and all of that. I personally don't necessarily agree with that point, because I feel like it was there before, definitely, and the people that I've had all of the toxicity off of hasn't been newbies, so that doesn't necessarily make sense to me in terms of new players coming in, being unexperienced with the game, and then telling me that I don't necessarily know how to play, or others don't know how to play, or they should be using this particular thing or whatever, because most of the time I feel like they're the ones that are more receptive to change and education and just like new ideas almost, right? But
I'll give two examples actually on that exact point that you made. One example is the poor guy who like died to Kezu and just got like roasted for it. Do you remember? And
I think that's a bad example, because that guy was just being the troll the whole time. So
if he was trolling, then it's a bad example. If at face value that it's real, then it's obviously experienced players making fun of a new player who died to a monster. That scenario. Another scenario is you go back to World. No one that is new to Monster Hunter is going to call you a world baby. You know, that's going to be the OG players that are almost gatekeeping. So I think the people that are calling each other world babies and stuff, they're part of the problem and the toxicity. But I do think they are a small minority. And what's extra funny is a lot of people are getting called world babies even though they started in like Freedom Unite or like Gent or whatever, you know. So it doesn't even apply. It's just an insult for the sake of insulting someone.
Yeah, I get why someone would gatekeep on this game as well. Like, if you realise where it started from, it's a very niche game over here in the West, at least. Obviously in Japan this has always been like huge or big, but it's like the cool thing is basically Dark Souls before Dark Souls, and the more it's grown, the more casual or more accessible it's got, the more quality of life it's got. Essentially, it's made the game easier, and people feel like it's moving away from its core tenets. I feel like personally it's just removed a lot of the things that were annoyances, and we've got to like the core gameplay, me personally. But with other players, if they want that core experience, they're going to want new players to not come in and casualize it as much and have their vocal voice, and they're trying to keep their core experience prim and proper. I don't know if that's ever going to be resolved, because I feel like they're always going to want that old experience.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't feel like Capcom will ever deliver that again, considering the sales numbers and how popular World was. So it's gonna be a bit of a hard one for them to live with. And we kind of thought that was what Rise was going to be. Everyone was championing that, right? They were like, this is a return to old school Monster Hunter. But Rise, in actuality, in my eyes, is just Monster Hunter World on the Switch with
it was a mixture. It was a blend of them, wasn't it? It was a mixture. I can understand people wanting to keep the OG experience of their game. Like if you look at games like Call of Duty, like COD 4 or like World at War, were like really good in their own regards, but then they sort of start moving into like jetpacks and wall running and stuff like that. And if you're an OG COD fan, it's like, well, this is so different now. I don't connect with it anymore. And I get that people feel that way, but you do still have the old games that you can. I know there's still an audience and a community of people that are playing the original games. I do think that maybe it would be nice if the handheld games could find a way to like appease those people, but the logistics of it would be kind of crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think maybe the solution is just to keep the handheld games like old school, but then is it a viable business option for like Capcom and stuff like that? There's so many different variables in there that I don't even want to think about right now in general anyway. But generally, I think that was most of the gist of this whole poll. Is basically Monster Hunter community generally good. Clap, clap, clap. Monster Hunter community has some has its moments of being toxic, but that is a small percentage of topics and people. Right now, it's a bit more toxic because people are not necessarily, and we don't really speak about this, right? People are not necessarily happy with Rise, right? So people are going to try to, I think this happens with every community. It happens with Destiny, it happens with Call of Duty, and basically a cycle. Call of Duty cycle's like hilarious. It's like, new game comes out, people play it for a bit, something, after a few months, like that new game smell wears off, people get mad, the community kind of turns on each other, then they realize that they need to turn on Activision, then new game comes out, everybody's celebrating. It's the same with
if they release the game quick enough, they can get the hate off their back and everyone's too busy playing it, so they start developing the next one.
It's the same thing with Monster Hunter now, right, where it's got so popular that it's kind of happening with that cycle. And I think it's like, again, one of those things that all of this stuff did happen, but social media's got so much bigger that all these voices that weren't necessarily vocal have a voice now and can discuss this. But you guys can really let us know what you think about all of this. Is this the experience that you had with it when you're playing? Do you not notice any of this? Are you just chilling, just vibing with your friends? For me, I'm there in the dirt on the front line, so I see all of this stuff. But in general, before I started going on social media, it was just a vibe, you know. Monster Hunter, it was just own little thing.
It was like, yeah, you could jump into a world of your own, and everyone was really friendly, willing to teach you, willing to even carry you if you were struggling, farm out that armor set with you. It was a really good experience as like a new player that's not exposed to some of the more hardcore players that are doing the toxic stuff or gatekeeping or whatever. But like you say, we as like content creators on whatever the platform is, we see the comments and we see the discourse and we see the conversations and the discussions and the debates. So we are like more tuned into that vocal crowd, if you will. And it's nice because I think some of the, like for me specifically, I like to try and do more beginner level videos that I put out. And there are a lot of new players in Monster Hunter and they need that beginner level content. And I do sometimes get to see a new player that's like, oh, this is a legitimate comment that I had one time. It's like, oh, I'm a level 6. I'm a 65-year-old mum who is like playing Monster Hunter for the first time, and this has been really helpful for me because I had no idea what I was doing. And that's like a really casual player that's enjoying the game and getting a lot out of it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get a comment that's like, oh, you didn't dive deep into the specific motion values of every single attack in this video and whatever. And it's like, well, it's because it's not meant for you, you know. It's a beginner's video. You know?
It's definitely something that we get roasted for, right? We try to cater to people that will play this game in a way that's like not even just casual. It's like just not going super hardcore into like every particular mechanic. The way that you normally consume a game. If you weren't playing Monster Hunter and you weren't super dialed in any other game that you would necessarily like play, that's how we try to create it for the 95% of people that play, not the 5% that is just like grinding or doing something. And we get roasted for that, and it always makes you feel bad when you see a comment when someone's roasting you for not going too in depth or not explaining something in particular, or assuming someone's got like crazy amounts of time to invest into a game. But then you have comments like you said with the lady that's saying basically that's her first experience. We had that with Stories as well, right? Stories is a more casual game, and I feel like Stories was an amazing bubble. Shout out to the Stories community.
Massive
I know it's meant to be the same Monster Hunter community, but in general, I just felt like when we were just playing stories, it was just a jam. Like everyone
was
was
just vibing. Everyone that plays stories was just vibing until they got to a point where they either did it, like they were either done with the game or they realized like the only problem with stories was that it was really grindy at the end. But like, if it doesn't have that, then it's got nothing, you know. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
But people still enjoyed it, and people still have made fun of it, and we kind of all worked together to make sure that everybody was having fun on that, and they had PvP tournaments and all that stuff, and it was super fun. That's what I really like about communities, when they get together and kind of really work together. Anyway, guys, this video has gone on for 20 minutes of us talking about the Monster Hunter community. Hopefully we wrapped up everything. It was a little podcast for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Obviously, leave a like if you haven't already. And Paradise, do you have any videos going out?
We got some New World stuff going out, and I've got a spicy video idea that I haven't even told you about 2.6, but maybe it'll be on the channel today.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I was like waiting for him to say what he's going to do. All right, cool. So Paradise has got his spicy video idea going out on the channel today, and obviously hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.